Welcome to the Dear NICU Mama podcast. Our mission is to connect the past and the present NICU mom by bringing them out of isolation and into a sisterhood of women who can stand alongside each other as we heal and grow both in and out of the NICU.
Our hope is that through interviews with trauma-informed medical and maternal mental health experts and vulnerable stories from NICU mamas themselves, that you would feel connected to the Dear NICU Mama sisterhood around the world. So, whether your NICU journey was 50 years ago,
or whether you find yourself in the NICU today, we hope that this podcast reminds you that you are not alone.
Hi, friends, and welcome to the Dear NICU Mama podcast. It's your hosts, Martha and
Ashley.
I had to do some mouth breathing off to the side before I came over. I'm sick, everybody.
I was like, either she's about to cough or she's just taking a deep breath.
I know. I will try not to sniffle and cough directly into this microphone today. I will do my best.
Do you remember? I don't remember what episode it was, but I was also very sick. And did I send you the screenshot of how many times I had to edit out sniffles?
Oh no!
No, so I'm used to it. So if I have to do that for you, I'm a pro at editing out boogers.
Well, that's good. I'm gonna try my best not to because I really don't want you to have to do that. But yes, oh my gosh, you are an angel sent from above. How are you feeling, Ashley?
I'm feeling good. My dog is now on Weight Watchers Puppy Edition.
Yep.
She's a little bit chunky, so she's on a regimen that honestly I should probably be on as well. She now needs to eat green beans. So we're getting through. But I just find it hilarious that she's on Weight Watchers. They also took a before picture today.
I think that's gonna be hilarious. I can't wait to see the after. Also, to me, she also is. Your dog is a Bernese Mountain Dog, so she's covered in hair. So part of me is like, how will the picture show a lot of difference? Or
I know. I was wondering that too. And honestly, I feel like a really bad pet owner because I was like, she's how much overweight? But I just thought that her breed was just big.
She's a giant dog.
She's a giant dog, her hair is so deceiving. And then she had a blowout yesterday at the groomer. So she's just a fluff ball. So I just thought it was just her hair, but she's a little chunky.
Oh, well, she'll find her right balance for her. Whatever works for her, Opal. Oh boy. Well, today we are having part 2 of an episode with a beloved mother, a team member of us, a NICU mama, an angel from heaven. Kamille, welcome back, Kamille. We're so glad that you're here.
Hey, I'm super glad to be here. We have angels from heaven here today, is what it sounds like. And also sniffles. So, Ashley, you might have to ×2 sniffles. So we're really putting you on the spot.
I'm a pro. I can do that.
And yours are pollen related, correct?
Yes. Yeah. No. Texas. They're all the trees are actively trying to kill us over here in Texas. So that's where I'm at.
I got it.
Is it bad that I'm kind of jealous?
I know,
that
your trees have things to try and kill us with. Ours are just sad, and there's just snow everywhere, and we're supposed to get 4 to 7 more inches of it today. So,
jeez, no, our whole our horizon, our atmosphere is just a yellow hue.
Oh my gosh!
It's our cars are full of yellow. The ground is yellow. My hair is yellow when I walk outside. It's rough.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad that you survived the horrific attack by the trees and were able to come here today. So everybody listening, we hope that you understand that we are in different places with our health and well-being today. And I hope that you are too, wherever you're at in this journey of cold and flu season and spring pollen season and nearing the end of the school year. Please know that we see you. And we know how hard it is to be a parent in the year of our Lord 2023, and we are with you.
We truly are. Well, and if you did not have a chance to listen to part 1, we will link it in the show notes. Part 1 was such a beautiful story of sweet Owen and his CDH diagnosis and NICU journey and who he is today. And our whole season 6 is all about growing our families after NICU. And we have the honor today of hearing about Kamille's family building journey post NICU. She is now mama to 2. She delivered Luuk. How old is Luuk now?
He is, oh gosh, remember I told you not to ask me math next time? He is 19 months.
Oh, holy cow.
20, is he 20 months? I think he's 20 months now. Yeah.
Oh
That's wild, first of all. His mullet is my favorite.
Yeah.
So we're really excited. Yes, we're really excited to hear about your family building journey and what it was like to be pregnant after your experience with Owen, and what it's like to now be on the other side of pregnancy and delivery and have two rambunctious, beautiful boys. So we're so excited to have you back and to hear more about your story.
Yes. And 10 out of 10 would encourage you to go look at the pictures associated with this episode, because these two little boys they make this cute little gang. They look like these little old men. They are so adorable. I have thought that since the day they were born. They are so cute. I can't even stand it.
So cute.
Thank you.
So stinking cute. Well, maybe to start today, let's just talk a little bit. We'll kind of pick up where we left off. So Owen graduated the NICU. He was home. You guys were adjusting to life as a family. And I would just love to start off this episode by asking you, after your experience with Owen, did you guys talk at all about if you wanted to have more kids? And how did you feel about that in some of those early conversations?
After having Owen, we weren't sure if we were going to have kids. We took a long time in even thinking about it and even thinking about growing our family, just because the whole NICU experience was long and we needed to focus on Owen and his complexities when he came home. Mm-hmm. So we did not have a lot of space to think about it in the beginning once we brought him home. We also just weren't sure if we were to have another kid, if they would also have a congenital defect. Mm-hmm. It's not likely that they would, but it does happen. So that was just another thing that we had to think about was, could this happen again? And that was a really, really scary thought. So it took us a long time before we sort of opened that space for each other to talk about having a kid and the potential of bringing a sibling into this craziness.
Mm-hmm. I remember when you found out that you were pregnant. Again, could you talk a little bit about what that was like and how you found out and how you felt when it happened?
So, Luuk was a bit of a surprise. Like I said, so we did talk about having a kid, but we never closed the door. We left it open. And he just kind of came as a surprise. He wasn't really planned, but I actually found out that I was pregnant like 2 days before Owen's first birthday.
Yep.
Yeah, so it was really, really closely after. I had a ton of mixed emotions. I was A, surprised. So was shock. And B, I was excited because you're bringing life into this world, and we love each other, and we had all those ideal possibilities of our family being a family of 4. Mm-hmm. But then C, it was a really daunting emotion of what do we do now? Again, bringing in those conversations of, could they also have a congenital defect? Could we be in the NICU again? What's it like going to have a sibling like Owen, who has this complexity? How are we going to manage the two of them? Yeah. We just weren't really sure what it was going to be like having another kid. And admittedly, I was just very, very scared and concerned, which I feel, rightfully so. We just got through this whole experience. But it was a duality of emotions, just like we talk about all the time. So happy, but I think fear sort of unfortunately, it did overtake that experience in the very beginning.
Right. And, how were your pregnancies different? Were you able to kind of like see your pregnancies as two different pregnancies, or did it feel like you were kind of in a similar place as you were with Owen?
The pregnancies felt very much the same. So when I first found out that I was pregnant with Luke, I had just started to feel like I was recovering from my place with Owen. So I just felt like I was kind of coming out of the pregnancy fog, the NICU fog, the new parent fog. Yeah. I was kind of sort of sleeping through the night again. And being pregnant with Luke, it just kind of felt like I was thrown back into what it was like being pregnant with Owen. So it was really, really difficult to separate the two pregnancies. Yeah. I would say up until the 20-week anatomy scan. When we got to the 20-week anatomy scan with Luke, we found out that he did not have any congenital he did not have a congenital diaphragmatic hernia. He was picture perfect at 20 weeks. And that was the first time that I could sort of separate the two pregnancies. But I think just mentally and emotionally, I was still very much connected to what I had gone through with Owen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it hadn't been that much earlier, and your body obviously still remembered, the experience of being pregnant is so tied to those memories. So even things that would be quote unquote normal, I could see how it's all interwoven in your experience.
Right. And because too, Owen's pregnancy was normal for the most part. So Owen was closely monitored, but I wasn't. Being pregnant with Luke, everything was normal still. So there wasn't like this big drastic change in my pregnancy, besides the fact that Luke was healthy. So.
Yeah.
This isn't a question on there, but I wonder, how do you navigate that feeling of because they're two boys, they're different kids, they're different pregnancies, they're different experiences, but one was obviously far more complex and had a lot of weight to it, and the other one was more traditional in the sense of how you would expect a pregnancy to go, hopefully to the end. How do you handle like the comparison between those two experiences? You know what I mean? I always think about this with multiples or with siblings that are close together, right? They're different, but you also don't want to consider them differently, or I don't know if there's like a wave of like guilt or feelings about how those differences sit next to each other. Does that make sense?
It does. No, it totally does. And I definitely have these overwhelming feelings of guilt sometimes. For instance, even today, when Luke gets sick versus Owen getting sick.
Yep.
I have a lot more anxiety when Owen gets sick. I immediately start thinking, where's the closest ER? I get the little pulse ox out. I check his O2. I check his heart rate, count his breaths.
Yep.
I get on the phone with the CDH team. I get very, very anxious when Owen is sick. It's gotten better over time, but still the anxiety is a little bit higher than when Luke gets sick, which I feel really guilty about. But Luke doesn't have the little lung.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I love him any less, or the care for him would be less. It's just this internal anxiety that I have. I feel a little bit more for Owen than I do for Luke. So it does make sense. That makes a lot of sense to me, Martha.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and like you said, it's reasonable, and it seems like, the crux of it is they're two different kids, so you're going to parent them different no matter what anyway, right? And so that seems like where the kind of compassion and grace comes from too for yourself.
Right. Yeah, it does.
I hope you're giving yourself compassion. Otherwise, I'll drive over there, Kamille.
I know, that's what I always preach too, right? You know, give yourself some grace, be compassionate. But I try. It's gotten better over time, and it always will, I feel like. But but yeah, when your kids are sick, it's hard. But I feel like that is the main difference I feel between the two, is just when they're sick.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's personalities, like you said. We just manage them in different ways. But the sick piece is sort of where I feel the difference.
Well, and, you know, one question I have, and I don't think this is on the sheet either, but, you know, sometimes with some of our moms who do have medically complex kids, the thought of the capacity to have another one feels really overwhelming. Yeah. You know, it's like, I'm already such a full-time 24/7, you know, mom and advocate and medical caregiver to my child. Like, would I have enough capacity to be a parent to another child? So, you know, how did you process just knowing that you were bringing another one into the family, and how did you kind of work through some of those capacity questions of, can I do this?
The thing that stands out the most is we got through it with Owen. And so we got through this very traumatic experience. We had this very complex situation, and we got through it together. So it feels like the hardest, most unimaginable thing that could happen to a couple, that could happen to a parent, that could happen to a family. We experienced it, and we got through it together. And so that was my relief in bringing another kid into it, because that is actually something we did talk about. You know, what if Luke does have congenital diaphragmatic hernia, or what if he does have a congenital disease that puts him in the NICU and we have to do this all over again? You know, Jacques and I talked about that, and we were like, if it happens, it happens, and we get through it again.
Yeah.
And luckily we didn't, but you know, Owen is always our grace. Like, if we could get through it before, we could get through it again.
Yeah.
I really love that too, because it's kind of like, you know, you have all of the evidence you could possibly ask for that you can survive it, right? Like you did, like the extreme case study of childbirth and NICU stay, and you did it and you survived. And that's such an important reminder for people. But I mean, obviously it's hard. It doesn't feel good, right? It's not fun, but you have the information you need in terms to kind of bolster yourself and know that you are capable, for sure. Yeah. I wonder how you know, we talked a little bit on your last episode about postpartum depression and anxiety and mental health. Knowing that was kind of clearly, you were still in the window of that experience in a lot of ways, like you mentioned. How did you approach your mental health and take care of your mental health during that time frame?
That's a really great question. I kept up with my psychiatrist, and I kept up with my therapist. This is like, it's all bringing it back, right? Like I've suppressed all of this now. One of the other fears that I really, really had when I found out that I was pregnant with Owen, or with Luke, was I did not want to go back there. I did not want to have postpartum depression again. I did not want to be in that mental state, because again, like I sort of felt like I was kind of coming out of that. And then here I am pregnant again. That's what I remember a lot of, was just being terrified that I was going to go back into that hole. But I got the support that I needed for my postpartum after having Owen. I had a good regimen going. I had a good psychiatrist. And so when I got pregnant with Luke, I was 100% transparent with them. I learned through my postpartum to be transparent with them. Like, you can't keep secrets with them, because they're trying to help you, and they need to have all the information in order to support you the best way. So that's what I really did is I kept up with my psychiatrist and my therapist, and, you know, I tried to sleep as much as I could, because sleep is so, so important when you've experienced depression and anxiety. So we really tried to help me sleep through the night, whether that was tag teaming who was taking care of Owen, which I did for the most part until I got very, very pregnant and had to pee every 5 seconds, which I will say you have to do at like 20 weeks for your second kid. Like, it just hits you even faster.
That pelvic floor, man.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's all really wise. And also kind of part of it is having a plan, right? Like, this is what I know for this time around. Like you said, I so identify with that, Kamille. Like, that's like my most terrifying feeling about like ever having another child again. It was like, I really don't want to go to like those, back to those Sylvia Plath days, but it's that reminder of even having the understanding of how far you've come. And having the support system already gets you like 50% of the way there. You know what I mean? Not that it's not hard work, but the plan itself is part of the work too. So good for you for doing all that.
Thanks. I mean, I think it also just speaks to what we go through and what we can accomplish during that first pregnancy or during that complex NICU type era.
Yep.
That's all brand new to us. And so we may not even be thinking about that, right? Like, I was not thinking about building a support system. But during that second pregnancy, I realized I did have a support system. I did have a game plan of protecting my mental health and supporting myself. So yeah, that's a really good point.
So go, Kamille.
Yeah.
It's a team effort.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, and as you've been talking too, I kind of hear you often saying we, and I love that, you know, with both of your pregnancies and deliveries, it's you and Jock were so connected and so much on the same team. And I think that's really important too, of like, you know, bringing your partner in and having them be a part of that. And I think it's evident today just that you guys have truly walked through these things together hand in hand. And I think that's just stunning and beautiful. So bravo to the two of you as well.
Thank you. He'll be so happy to hear this, because he was giving me a little grief about the first episode. He was like, "You didn't talk about me." I was like, "Are you serious? Is this your
Well,
new
we could
job?"
talk about his mustache. Should we talk about his
so
mustache on here? Seriously, this cute little artsy boy. I'm all about it.
Okay, let's make sure that it's a mustache beard thing, because if you say mustache, he's going to shave off the beard part. And we don't need to see that. I love you, but we don't need to see that.
We don't want to say that. I love it.
Oh my gosh. So funny.
Oh, so funny. So when it was time to deliver Luke, what was his birth experience like, and how did it feel different than Owen's?
Girl, it was so different. Luke decided he was going to be a little early. He was 36 weeks early, like 36.4, so almost to the 37 mark, which would have made him medically full term. But he was a really big baby, and, you know, he was very heavy, and I remember researching the night, because you're always on Google, right? Is it just me, or is everyone always on Google?
No, you know you shouldn't be, but we still do it. We do it. We all do it.
I remember a nurse telling me that when we found out about Owen, they're like, just don't go to Google. And what do you do? Like, come on. Anyway, so I got on Google because, like, I can't, like, I feel really nauseous, and, you know, my palms are kind of like sweaty, and I just wasn't feeling good. So I Googled, can your water break in your sleep? And then at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m., my water broke.
No way.
No.
The night that I did the Google. So the universe was listening. And so was Luke.
Yep.
And my water broke, and which was different because with Owen, they popped it on accident. This was Luke and intentional, but I had to go and tell Jacques, you know, hey, so my water broke. Just a totally like normal experience, which is, again, totally different. It wasn't an induction, and it was still 36 weeks, which was like, it was kind of scary. But anyway, we went to the hospital. I immediately started having contractions. It was so painful. It was like every 3 minutes. I was scheduled to have a C-section anyway, but it turned into an emergency C-section still because my water broke and I was having contractions and I wasn't dilating. So it still turned into an emergency C-section, but it was so calm. Like, they didn't make it out like it was an emergency, but that wasn't bad. Like, it was just like a calm sort of, this is what we have to do now. And it was a different hospital. It was a smaller hospital. They wheeled me to my room. They still had time to give me one of those pain shots. I forget what it's called.
Epidural?
Thank you.
No.
Yes, the epidural.
Is that what it was?
Yes.
Okay.
I like pain shot better. That's what we're calling it.
Yeah, me too.
It makes more sense, right? So, yeah, and then they took me to the OR, and there were like 4 or 5 people in the room, y'all. Like 4 or 5. I was looking around, kind of wondering where everyone else was, because with Owen there were 20 people in the room that all introduced themselves, by the way. That's nice, but 20 people. Right. And then it was just 4 people, or 5, like I said. And yeah, it was just a totally different experience. The OR was quieter. The C-section was still painful. Like, that's nothing that's really exciting. But just like the birth itself was just so different. When he was born, I could see him. They brought him to my face so I could, give him a little kiss before they took him, and got him all cleaned up. But yeah, with Owen, I didn't even see him. They just, took him right away and got him all intubated. And Luuk, I got to see his little face. I got to see Jacques cry as, he got to also give him a kiss. And yeah, and then they took him and like 2 other people left. And then I think we were left with like 3 or 2 doctors at that point. And they sewed me up and took me back to my room. It was totally, totally different.
Yeah. Did you feel like, oh, where are you guys going? Is it just us now?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I felt like. I was like, are we done? Like, where? Because it got so quiet. I feel like with Owen, there was so much noise going on. Everyone was talking. Everyone had a job. So they were just all talking to each other. Machines were going off. My machines, Luke's machines, or Owen's machines. And then with Luuk, it was just, maybe his crying was the loudest thing in the room. And with Owen couldn't even cry. Like, they didn't want him to cry because of the pulmonary hypertension. But with Luuk, he could cry. And you think, like I said, he was like the loudest thing in the operating room. Yeah. But then when they left, I was like, "Where are you guys going?
Come back."
It's so quiet now.
That's so well. And if this question is weird, we don't have to include it. But I do have one question, and I don't know if I'll phrase it right. Okay. But one thing that we sometimes think, or we hear often talked about in like our support group, is that if we have a quote normal birth, it'll kind of like make up for everything that happened with our other kids, or it'll make the pain of our other birth experiences go away, because we'll kind of have this like almost redemption birth or redemption experience. Yeah. And I wonder if you could share a little bit about like, you had a more normal birth, you've had a more traumatic birth, but how, I don't even know how to ask this right, but like, did it fix how you felt about your other birth? Or, you know what I'm asking? Yeah. Like, I don't know if I'm asking that right.
I think the other thing too is it kind of plays to this idea. I'm sure we've all had this, like, you have like a traumatic experience and people say you've had that experience, and someone might say, probably a baby boomer, well, you can always have another one. You'll just try again,
Right,
and
yeah.
it somehow will negate everything
Fix
that happened.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Did you hear those comments? Did you have any kind of processing about that feeling or that concept afterwards?
I definitely heard those comments after I had Owen. It was people would say, well, it's not going to happen again. And next pregnancy or, don't.
Oh, yeah.
They would tell me, don't be afraid to have kids. That was always a thing. Don't let this,
great.
this thing that happened, don't let this thing that happened stop you from having more, because kids are such a blessing. I'm like, yes, they are.
Right.
But let's focus on this one that we have.
Right, because you're just like if you don't have more kids, then that's a comment that you think children are terrible. Yes.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
It's so hard, yeah.
But no, I do understand your question. In reflecting on the two different experiences, one, Luke's didn't change Owen's experience. I think by even asking that question, you sort of help me reflect and solidify that they were two different pregnancies. They were two different birthing experiences. They're two different boys. Luke's didn't make up for Owen. And I don't want it to, because Owen is such a miracle. And I think like his birth, as crazy as it was, as life-threatening as it was, without him being born the way that he was, like in the medical intervention and the help that we got, he wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I wouldn't change his birth, his experience. Luke's was just different. It was special in its own right. I was in a much better place. I was more relaxed. But they were both totally special, because they're both special kids. And I don't know if that helps answer it, but that's at least like my experience between the two.
Right. No, I'm like crying over here. That's such a beautiful answer. Well, and so honoring of both of your birth experiences. I know we're going to be touching on this on our social media in the upcoming months, but sometimes we see our traumatic births as like problematic, or we kind of look at them with the lens of like sympathy, and like, we just kind of have this taste in our mouth of like, oh, if I could just experience a normal, beautiful, happy birth, then this will all feel better, this will all be better. But really acknowledging that like both types of birth, all types of birth stories are unique and special, because it brings our kids into the world.
Right.
And so, I love that you articulated that so well, and how honoring for both of your kids that you have space to honor both of their stories. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it takes a lot of reflection, and I think, there are questions that people ask, or there are ways that people ask, like you just did, that helped me reflect in that way that I maybe hadn't really thought about. So job well done. I appreciate it. It helped me heal just a little bit right now.
I love you.
Me too.
Well, and for moms that are either considering growing their family or have we're pregnant type of experience, looking back on your journey, what are some things that just helped you? I know you mentioned like staying in touch with your psychiatrist, having that support system, preparing, giving yourself the tools that you maybe wish you would have had, your first pregnancy and that kind of thing. But what words of encouragement and hope would you offer them as they maybe embark on another pregnancy post-NICU?
Your babies are different And so you're going to carry them a different way. What you went through was awful. Like, it's nothing to make light of or say it wasn't hard or it could have been worse. Because in those moments it did feel like the worst thing that could have happened. But if you get pregnant again, if you're able to, or if you want to, it's going to be a different experience. It's not going to be the same. It literally just cannot be the same pregnancy. And that gives just an ounce of relief or hope. I think the hope is in the kid that you did have, right? In the pregnancy, in the birth, that was a success in the end, right? Like, there's hope. So I think allow yourself to feel that hope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing we talk about a lot is this concept of our own like our narratives of our journey, which we belong to us, but then our kids also have kind of like their own narratives of who they are and what their NICU journeys are for them. I wonder how you kind of plan on talking to your boys about this. How will you share with Owen about his NICU experience and with Luuk about what CDH is and what this means for you and your family? What part of the story this was for them.
One day I know that I'm going to have to tell Owen about his birth. And I know one day conceptually they will understand that their births were different. And right now, that is not the case because they are so little.
Yes, yeah.
But there's parts of Owen that shine through that relates to his birth and his medical condition. Like, he has a scar, doesn't really pay attention to it, but it exists, and they point to each other's belly, and Luuk will sometimes point at the scar. But then there's Owen, who is so in tune with, I don't know how to explain it, but just like with medicine. He has his own like stethoscope and listens to the dog's heart, to Luke's heart, to Dad's heart, to mine, to his. So he already just like has this sort of like spiritual medical experience that I think Luuk and him will almost figure it out together. Like, they'll figure out that there's, I don't know exactly how to articulate it.
We're kind of hitting you with some hard hitters because you're so wise and very thoughtful.
I'm not wise.
Yeah.
But I understand what
We're
you're
like, oh, this question's not on the list. Like,
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I get what you're saying though. Like, they're going to figure out their own identities in the context of each other, alongside each other, their whole lives, right? And even though they're too young to really comprehend everything that happened, like even what you just described, it's clear how it's representing in a developmentally appropriate way, right? The way that they're doing this play and the seeing. And in certain ways, it's kind of cool that Owen is older because he has this kind of, like you said, that spirituality, like the understand like that connection to his body and the world that Luuk doesn't. But then he models it for Luuk, right? Then Luuk gets to learn that part of the world in a little way that he wouldn't if Owen wasn't his big brother.
Right. No, thank you, Martha, for articulating that for me, because that's exactly what I mean. They sort of just teach each other about you know, their experience. I mean, even Owen, he has his inhaler and he has like a spacer.
Yeah.
And so Luke, I'll just pretend with Luke, because then Luke is like, oh, I want to try. So I'll put the spacer to his face and like he'll breathe. and so I feel like they're gonna end up having each other's backs. Like, yes, these experiences are different, but I even think when they're older, that's not going to make a huge difference in their, you know, their true identity. I think it has like just a really big effect on the parents, right? Because we're the ones that were there. We're the ones that experienced it. We're the ones that are going to have lifelong anxiety because we're parents. But to them, it's just going to be a thing that happened. And yeah, I just think they're going to teach each other. In a really awesome way, like brothers do. They're two peas in a pod.
Yeah, they really are. So sweet. Well, maybe as a final question, one thing that we, again, talk about a lot is just bonding with our babies. And when you bond with your baby in like a very high-risk medical environment, you can kind of, you know, wonder like, well, would bonding feel different or be any more significant or less significant if it wasn't in such a high-risk medical situation? So could you speak a little bit about what bonding was like and, you know, maybe how it differed or maybe how it was the same?
Sure. Bonding was very different, but the outcome was the same. So the experience of bonding was different, but the outcome was the same, right? Which is I love my kids unconditionally, and my heart grew 2 sizes bigger.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was possible. And with Owen, it was a very intimate way of bonding that... I mean, it was intimate with Luke too. They're just different. So,
yeah.
It was intimate with Owen in the sense that I could hold his hand, and I fell in love with that little tiny hand because it was the only thing that I could hold and touch. And then over the course of our stay, I could hold him. And so that experience was different, and that was intimate, and the emotions were tenfold. I think with Luke, I could hold him right away. And maybe that's the piece where it does sort of feel like when you were talking about the 2 different experiences, and if one, you know, if Luke's experience made Owen's a little bit better, I think in the moment where I was able to bond with Luke and hold him in the hospital bed, that's where I felt like I was holding both my boys. That's where I felt like I was holding Luke so much harder because I didn't get that with Owen, right? So that was really special. It wasn't, which is so strange, right? Because they're 2 different kids, but I was holding Luke and Owen intimately and bonding in that way, but it was just Luke.
I think what I hear so beautifully throughout your episode is that both pregnancies, both experiences, both births, both bonding newborn stages had their own forms of beauty and significance, and one didn't negate the other. One wasn't necessarily better than the other. They both were stunning and beautiful in their own ways, and you do such a good job of articulating that, of just that both of your boys' stories are miraculous and beautiful because it's their own. And how lucky are your boys to have a mom that sees that and that celebrates that. And you do that so well. And I'm sure is a big reason that they're so bonded and so close. Yep. And so kudos to you, friend.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kamille, you really strike me as somebody who's incredibly thoughtful, you know, and you're very introspective and understanding where you're at and considering your boys at every step and considering what this means for them. I don't know if we've had a guest who's really just who's put as much thought and precision into your responses. Do you know what I mean? And I agree with Ashley. I think that is a testament to how you are as a parent too, right? Just like full of care and thoughtfulness for your boys and who they are, which is incredible considering all the work that you've put in and all of the things that you've survived to be here. And I can't cry because I literally there's no room for the tears to go. It's all congested. So now I'm just going to sniffle even more.
I love you guys. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, the journey has been really, really long. I still have a psychiatrist. I still have a therapist. So I won't say that I'm all healed up and I'm on my own now. No, because it's still a practice and it takes time. I don't know how else to, I think, really get across that it's going to be okay, that if you do get pregnant again, or you have another kid, if you foster or adopt another kid, which is something that my husband and I have talked about, it's going to be okay because it's different and they're beautiful and special in their own right. I'm really happy to have both of them. It was all a very scary experience, but fear does not triumph the happiness that they can bring, right? So I feel very, 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 very blessed and very lucky to be their mom. They're crazy.
They are so funny. I highly recommend going and looking at these pictures again. They're so freaking cute.
So cute.
You guys are funny. Yeah, like you say that and then people come and follow me on Instagram and I love it. I always accept it. But I'm so grateful. They're like, oh, I have to see these hooligans.
They are like, they're on like tractors and they're with the dogs and they're doing funny things. They're just like the best. Yeah. And you have like a magical home for them to be in, and you guys. Anyway, Kamille is a 10 out of 10. That's all I have to say.
Oh,
can you tell that we like really think you're great? We like can't stop complimenting you throughout the episode. Well, I love it. Well, Kamille, thank you so much for coming back and sharing both journeys of your boys. And we hope that for all of the moms listening, you hear loud and clear that it's going to be okay, that you are making the best decisions for your family, and that you're worthy of the support that you need to get through each and every day. Whether that's healing from the NICU, whether that's pregnancy or growing your family after the NICU, you're worthy of that care. And so we love you, mamas, no matter where you are in your family building journey. We just hope that you hear loud and clear that you're the best mom for all of your kids, and you can do this. So we love you. We'll be back next week for another episode, but have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of the Dear NICU Mama podcast.
If you loved this episode, we'd be so grateful for a review on any of the podcast platforms.
And we'd love to continue connecting with you via our social media pages or a private Facebook group. And ultimately, NICU Mama, welcome to the sisterhood.